Shifters, entrepreneurs on the move, with your host, Amanda Barr, bringing you power-packed 15-minute conversations with entrepreneurs who share their stories of shifting in life and business to keep on the move.
Welcome to the show today. I am your host, Amanda Barr, and we've got a special treat for you. If you are an athlete now, former athlete, or just love sports, keep listening. We've got Jason Robinson. He's the co-founder and CEO of Playbook Five. Playbook Five is an LA-based startup providing an immersive, virtual practicing and learning platform for athletes and coaches. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you for having me. And I appreciate that introduction. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I'm so glad to have you on the show. And I would just love to dive into your backstory. Tell us, where have you come from and how have you gotten to Playbook Five?
Sure. So I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, California, former college football player. I played my college football at Boise State University up in Idaho, a little bit different from LA, but I made it work. Yeah. Ended up having quite a bit of success there with the program, and was a part of our ascension to really the top tier college football programs, and being one of them. So prior to that, I also played for my dad in high school. My dad was a high school football coach for 30 years here in Los Angeles, and I was fortunate enough to play for him, play with my brother. Had a very, very intimate experience with the sport, if you will, even going back to a young age, as young as 4, 5 years old, when I was, wow, my dad's ball boy. So, that's kind of what shaped me. I like to tell people I learned the game of life through the lens of the game of football. So it's a very profound experience for me.
Amazing. And tell us, you were playing football and your entire life, and then you went into college. And tell us how you transitioned into, because I know you're living the world still today. So how did this come about? Yeah.
So mentioning and hearing how much it was a part of my life, as you could imagine, when I finished playing college football, I kind of went through a time of just really unknown and not really knowing where I belonged. I knew I had some passions. I always loved and appreciated business, markets, economics, and also the creative process and branding. But, I'd spent so much time, on the field and in a helmet that when I was done, it was just really hard to figure out what the next step was going to be. And that's when I really, doubled down on my passions. And I didn't stop thinking. I just kept asking questions. And I was, I almost put myself broke myself down. And it's like, all right, what do I care about? What do I love? What would I get up every day and try to solve and be passionate about working at? And from there, I kind of looked at some of my most, just unique and real experiences in life. And a lot of the adversities I had were through injuries in football. I broke my wrist as a freshman in high school, had knee surgery as a sophomore in high school, get to college, tear my bicep, ended up having a bulging disc in my lower back, and all of these injuries. And I would, all the time when I was hurt, I'm broken collarbone one year in high school in spring. Wow. But all these times when I was hurt and I was forced to sit out, I would just go through these very, very, very deep, depression spells almost. I didn't know what they were when I was as young as 14, but growing and being what I am now, I know what I know now, that's what they were. And it was large in part because I was removed from the environment that I was so comfortable. And it was, being on the field with my team, being playing the game, participating and contributing to the team and being a part of it. When I wasn't doing that, it would pain me to the point where I wouldn't go to games. Or would try to not to go to practice. And so I really started to just think about those things. And one thing about life that I try to do is always take my experiences and provide a service, and make it better for other people. And because so many people have helped me get to where I'm at today, and so many other people's experiences and contributions. So I really looked at that And I remember looking at that like, wow, like I could take these, these things I care about, get behind them, and hopefully and potentially, help a whole entire generation of athletes that will come after me. And that's kind of what got it going. And then, the more I went out into the space and looked, and it really didn't look. I almost like was like a searching for the muse, I suppose, but just kind of stayed around business, stayed around the game, and just waited for that right thing to find me, really. And when it did, it just clicked and it fit, and I was like, oh, this is it. And that was what is now Playbook 5.
Wow. Thank you for just kind of taking us through that journey and just being real with us. I know that there's a lot of people that, the athletes, and they go through these injuries and taking that injury and turning it into something beautiful and propelling it forward. Mind me asking, what position did you play that you were getting hit so much?
Yeah. So in high school, I played quarter, which is, no disrespect to my former offensive lineman, but in high school, I actually played quarterback. But in all fairness, we ran a style of offense that I carried the ball quite a bit, so I almost, played the game like a running back, similar to what you'd see, the style of play you see from a Lamar Jackson or a Deshaun Watson. It was, also that was more of the type of offense I played in. So, which is why there were so many more injuries. And also then in college, I played safety, which is also a very, probably even more so physical position than quarterback. But the good thing about safety is you get to kind of pick, because you're the defender, you can kind of take your shots and figure out what you want to do and how much really power and force you want to bring to it. You're the hammer, quarterback, you're the nail. So yeah.
I love that analogy. And I'm just so excited. I'd love, as you're talking about this and going through, and I think your platform really hits home that when you're not a part, you don't feel a part of the game, you feel separated, but your platform kind of brings all that together. And even if you're not able to play, you can still be a part of the game. Can you explain, obviously your world that you brought to life is very visual, and we are on a podcast and it's very not visual, but I'd love for you to paint that picture of what does it look like to have Playbook 5 a part of a team as you have it now.
Right. So the way you build connection with anything is based on how much you engage with it. I think that we all agree with that, right? The more you watch a show, the more you watch a movie, or the more you engage with someone's social profile, the more connected you become to that, right? So it's no different in sport. And in sport, though, the connection is your repetition, right? So how much you're able to actually go out, practice, be involved, touch it, experience, and build that connection that will, come from the experience. Now, the problem is with football and any team, everyone can't get the same amount of opportunities for repetitions, meaning everybody doesn't get the same opportunity to connect themselves really to the playbook, which is ultimately the team's goal and the team's guide. So what this platform does and what our technology does is gives everyone on the team the same amount of opportunity to build their connection, build their repetitions, build their experience, build their confidence in relation to the team's playbook. And that for a team correlates to just an overall heightened experience, in my opinion. And I remember in college, one of the things I really appreciated was I always studied like I was starting. At one point I was a starter. Several points in my career, and injuries and other factors weighed into that, and those are sometimes no longer the case, and it happens. And then you have to, I still continue to prepare like a starter. And what that did was, while I was standing on the sideline, I was still so much engaged with the game because I had that connection, because I prepared and did it. So this just creates more opportunity for that. and allows people to learn at their own pace. And that's another thing too. It might take, for me, it might take 5 reps, especially based on everything you heard in this podcast, right? You give me a playbook, I can pick it up probably in 30 seconds right now, but I have so much of that experience behind me.
Yeah.
What happens when a kid comes to the game for the first time? Every kid is not a coach's son. Every young athlete didn't grow up, with cousins and uncles that played the game at a high level and immersed by the game. So it gives that novice, if you will, an opportunity to kind of play catch up, I suppose, and get to mastery and achieve mastery even quicker.
And to do that, you are literally diving into the VR world, right? So these players can not only be connected and on the field while they're there in practice, and maybe you can explain, do they use this in practice in addition to at home, or how do they apply these? Because I'm a big fan. I've dove into the VR world. I love it. I've seen it used for different things like learning different languages. And when I heard about your platform, I was like, what? Why isn't this out there already?
Well, it is.
Tell us more. Tell us how you apply it in that world, because it's so fascinating to me, how you can apply the VR to an athlete and to a playbook.
Right. So to answer your first question about whether or not they use it at practice or at home, it's a combination of both, right? So you can use this as a tool in preparation for practice, either in your team meetings, depending on what your structure and your scheduling is like. Now, because of COVID, a lot of teams have transitioned to virtual meetings, which we are obviously fortunate enough to be a part of, where teams are able to, hop on Zoom or their other web browser, whether it be Google Hangouts or what have you, and actually, show the coaches the reps they're doing, hop on the platform and be able to share that screen and have a shared learning experience. So that's kind of how you use it as a preparation for practice. And at home, as far as independent study, it also serves as a tool. Over the summer before you get to training camp, this becomes almost your preparation or your bridge program, right? So even before you hit the field, before you guys even get your helmet, before you get your, you get this right when you get your emergency card turned in. It's like, all right, this is day one, right? This is the first place you go as a preparation. So and we've seen teams use it from all ends of the spectrum, from both group usage, individual, different position groups using it, and it really just depends on what the coach wants to do. But the platform can plug in any way you need it to for your system.
Yeah. So it used to be you would have a booklet and you'd just be turning the pages and looking at the diagrams and looking at the, X's and O's and the little dashed lines, right?
Yep.
And
the difference now is
moving.
the difference now is the book is the phone, and the pages are the app. And because of technology, because of innovations like virtual reality, we can now move beyond just a 2D demonstration of a page. Now you can step on the page, be the page, move as if you were on the field. And that's really the coolest thing I would say about this, is the opportunity it opens. Who knows what that means for players' understanding and connection to gameplay? Because now this is the first time you're able to actually study at this level in an unlimited capacity. So it's really exciting stuff. And again, to be able to take all of my experiences and bring them all together and create something like this and be a part of a team that's creating something like this is really awesome. And some of the stuff we're doing with young athletes and even professional athletes is really fun.
Absolutely. Now, in a perfect world, and everybody dreams of the perfect game, that everything would go smoothly the first time through. But as we know, with any startup and with anything, things happen. So how have you shifted through this process as you've been building this, and now you've got a product? But what have been some of those shifts through this time frame that you've gone through?
Right. So, I mean, the biggest thing is, I mentioned that earlier that I spent so much time on the field and on the helmet, and that time was less time that was made available for things like learning business, learning marketing, learning how to operate a company, learning how to develop and scale a development team, learning how to organize an entity. All of those things that are the real details, very important details though, and almost non-negotiables of operating and running a business. Those things are the ones that bite you the most when you're kind of moving fast and innovating. So, and how I've kind of managed that is, and I'm thankful to have some great mentors in my life that have helped me to really walk this path. But the way I've managed it is I try to keep myself available to learn. And sometimes that experience can come from, extended education and extended studies like the Harvard Core program, which I'm currently enrolled in, or sometimes it comes in, hey, me giving up, 20 hours a week to go work part-time at a consulting firm to learn, how to, bypass and work around local legislation, whatever you have to need, whatever those nuances are. So that's what I would say is been the biggest shift. I'm 31 now. I got really started on entrepreneurship at 23 years old with my first, T-shirt brand online. And ever since then, I've been just finding out myself. It's been a matter of, oh, what don't I know? All right, go learn it and then bring it back. And kind of managing those words and trusting that, like, it doesn't have to be perfect right away because things take time anyway, right? Like, especially something like what we're working on now, Playbook 5. I mean, yes, as of this spring, in largely because of COVID, virtual reality is a much more recognizable term, but that wasn't always the case. And we didn't no one predicted COVID to happen, right? So we always considered ourselves to be early and give ourselves some time to learn things. And that's it's probably the best advice I could also give is sacrificing. And yes, that comes at expense as well. Like, that means that, you might not have all the revenue you want. You might not have the big fancy Series A round. You might not have, your news clippings and things of that nature, but you're working within the strengths that you currently have, and it really gives you a chance to learn. And we play very much so a long-term strategy, and in order to succeed on a long-term strategy, it's important that we know the fundamental elements of running and scaling a business. It's because it's not just an app, it's a business. The product and service of the business is an application that, uses virtual reality to help athletes improve their cognitive performance. But it's a business behind all of that. And you can't scale a product or service without having the proper business set up. So that's probably been one of the biggest shifts this whole time, is like just constantly raising the bar, getting there, and then finding out that, there's something else, and then having to figure out what you got to do to learn that. So it's cool though. It's a really good process. Like, even just talking about it gets me really excited because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Like, that's the only thing you got every single day when you're on this journey. That's the only thing you can bank on is a new question, and a problem to solve.
Yeah, and I mean, you're getting me all hyped up. I'm excited. I work in that space, and there's something to be said about that. I also an athlete. Didn't wear a helmet, but I was playing on the courts, and I love sports, and I think that you give inspiration on a few different levels, and one being for the athletes today that, if you're going through, where you can't physically be on the field, you can be immersed in it. You can still be applying, and you can still be learning at all times. And also for those that are hurt and not able to be on the field and not able to feel like they're a part of it, they can still be a part of it. And those things that you're going through, it just kind of helps bridge that gap and bring the team closer together. And I think there's always been that thing about being on a team. It's like, I don't get to play as much. Everybody wants wants to be on the starting line, and I definitely sat a good amount of time in some games, and that was for the best of the team because we had good players. But I think that there's something beautiful about just being a part of that and feel like you're contributing. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And
thank you.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, man, the time has just gone by so fast. We could definitely go through so much more. I would love to kind of get a nugget from you if we can. You've given so many today. But, you're an inspiration also to athletes in general that don't think that when they're coming out of the sport that they could do anything, other than the sport. And you've just transformed that whole thing and said, no, I'm going to make this a business and I'm going to do what I love. And that in and of itself is definitely something that can empower others. So what would you say has kept you on the move? Because you've transitioned through, it sounds like, a few different businesses. So what kept you on the move?
Yeah, so really just best way to say this, like what I'm doing and what we're doing at Playbook 5 is so specific to me as the individual that it is hard to ignore. I put so much of my passion, interests, personal capital, time into it that it's really hard to ignore in my story, right? And really, I looked at myself as what problems I faced and I witnessed and I observed from so many perspectives within the game, and that's created like just something where people always ask like, what makes you feel like you're doing it? You're on the right track. Well, I feel like if I wasn't doing it, nobody would be. Because it's that specific. It's just that.
Wow.
It's so much a part of my story, and I'm so thankful and grateful to be able to say that because that's rare. A lot of people will never get a chance to experience that, and it's a testament to the work that was put in on this journey. So I would say the nugget to that is just like finding yourself in the white space. Like build something that's so authentic that it can only be done by you. Like nobody can copy it. No one can compete with it because it doesn't exist. Not necessarily doesn't exist without you, but it only exists because of you, and something, just so tailor fit for you.
Yeah. And I think that's where that you shine. And that allows you to shine so bright because it's just coming out of your pores.
Yeah.
It's like alive in you. Wow. That's really special. I'm so glad you shared that. And I know there's a lot of people out there with a lot of passion and sometimes you doubt, how I would love to, I know that we usually wrap up with that, but I actually love to hear, how have you managed through the emotional side of that? Have you doubted, or have you always been just straight and narrow, this is my thing, or how have you dealt with that going through?
Man, there's always going to be on the journey, especially early on, those hardest steps. Getting started is the hardest part, and that's when you're making the most mistakes. And that's where I think that's where the doubt comes in, because the doubt is a feedback from a negative experience, and a negative experience in this is a bad mistake or a misstep. So really the way I mitigate and handle that is I remember that eventually there's going to become a time where I won't make that mistake. I'll be making a different mistake, or I'll have that experience will work for me. And just trusting that and having, some blind faith a little bit, but it's real. And you being an athlete, I'm sure you can think about times in your journey, playing where you started off one way, and the first day you try to do 10 push-ups is really, really hard. And then all of a sudden you do, a couple of weeks from now or however long it takes, doing 100 is now what makes you fatigued, and that's because of the experience. So I try to apply a lot of those principles and that same mindset to business, and I accept it for what they are. And look, when you're entrepreneurs, you're the person dealing with it. Nobody, There ain't, especially when you're, there ain't no board. There's barely a board to talk to. You got your co-founder. If you're lucky, you got one or two, people that are working under you. But at the end of the day, they're looking to you for confidence and direction too. So you can only really, handle it and take it at certain times, and it really falls on you. And you got to be able to transfer that energy. And that's why I look at it what it is. Like, all right, that's just a mistake. That's no different than when I was playing college football and I was lined up 10 by 2 on the tight end, and it was run action to me, and I gave the tight end my outside shoulder, and I lost force contain. And then I went back and watched film, and I felt like shit, excuse my French, but felt bad because I lost force. And then from that moment on, I knew, okay, if you get your outside shoulder pin, you're going to lose force contain, and slowly but surely it became a natural thing. And I try to do the same thing with business. So I just try to trust that. And I hope that answers. I know it's kind of went off on a tangent there, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, that's great advice and a good reminder, I think, for all of us listening, that, those challenges and those doubts are what's going to propel you forward. You just gotta move through them and know that, hey, you won't do that again, because you're going to learn. Sometimes we learn the hard way, but we learn and we keep learning and we keep going. And I think that kind of wraps it all around in a beautiful little bow to say it's all about learning, and you don't have to have it all figured out. This show's all about shifting. You don't have to have everything figured out to start a business, be an entrepreneur. You just shift. You're just moving through, and you can keep getting better and getting better. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, hey, what is this? I want to get it. I want to talk to Jason. I want to know more about Playbook 5. How do they get in touch with you?
So to get in contact with me directly, you can send an email to the company, and just you put the podcast in the subject, it'll get to me. But info@playbook5.com. Playbook5.com is also going to be our website. Playbook 5 is at Playbook 5 is across all our social handles: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And Playbook 5, it's 5 spelled out, not the number. So it's going to be Playbook FIVE. But you can find us there. And as far as me personally, I'm on Twitter at Jason Robinson, and that's where I kind of do most of my commentary. And if I have a very, very close to Instagram, but if you find it, you find it.
Yeah, well, I'm cheering you on, cheering on the group of Playbook 5. You guys are touching athletes now, and in the scheme of things, you're just getting started. You got a lot of ground to cover, a lot of great athletes to be a part of their lives and their world. And thank you so much for taking your time today to be on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed the episode today. We appreciate each one of you for listening and hope you left inspired and motivated to keep on the move. If you think this episode might help or inspire someone else, please share. Don't forget to subscribe and keep in the loop to hear more incredible stories of entrepreneurs like yourself on the move. Thank you for our supporters, RTB Capital Group, Financial Powerhouse, Callcast, and Power Podcasting. Now, get out there and keep on the move.